Okay, we are back. I'm very happy to have on the Goldstein on Gelt show award-winning podcaster Daniel J. Lewis, who helps other people improve their own podcasts. He's very involved in social media, and in fact, he's kind of a game changer in the world of radio. And Daniel, what I'd like to talk to you about today is you're in this kind of strange new world of podcasting. What's going to happen with the radio world?
Well, I think radio will be around for a long time because podcasting, while it's growing very rapidly, not everybody is familiar with podcasting. Not everybody has a smartphone. Not everyone knows how to subscribe to a podcast. So radio is going to be around for a while. But what I see happening in the radio industry is that radio is diminishing in its influence because a lot of people who do know how to subscribe to a podcast are choosing a podcast that's about a specific niche topic that they want to hear about, that they're passionate about. And they're choosing that over turning on the radio and getting 30 minutes of commercials with what seems like 20 minutes of content, at least here in the United States.
Okay, so you're actually being very optimistic, much more so than I expected when I asked you this question. Let me tell you the other side, which seems to me as though radio is solely dependent on advertising. And if I were advertising, why would I possibly choose to, put money into paying the radio stations, which do, by the way, seem to be pretty expensive? I would think it would be an incredibly steep slope, of decline once people realize that podcasting is available.
Right. That's a problem that advertisers are facing today because radio, billboards, these kinds of market or blanket advertising is you put an ad out there to thousands or millions of people, and a small percentage of them may care about it. But when you put an ad on something like a website or a podcast, you're advertising to perhaps the exact niche that you want to advertise to. And so the potential there is much greater of a return on the investment of advertising to, even though it's a smaller group, you might get more people interested in it. So advertising on radio, yeah, it has its place, but it's just not as effective as what you hear in a podcast or someone can recommend on their own website.
Okay, so now let's, maybe we should define a term for people, as you said, not everyone's into podcasts. What would you say is the difference, or what defines a podcast as opposed to a radio show?
Well, the content could be exactly the same, really. Technically, a podcast is an audio, video, PDF, or EPUB file that is distributed through the internet on an RSS feed through a technical thing called an enclosure tag. So podcasting is more a distribution method. It's not a style of show, but it's just how you distribute that show. So you could take a radio show and turn it into a podcast. And podcasting is time shifted. So someone doesn't have to listen at exactly the right time and exactly the right channel. They can subscribe to a podcast, download the episodes, and consume those at their convenience in the car, while they're jogging, while they're mowing the yard. They can fall asleep listening to it. They could listen to something 2 years later, and the content could still be relevant to them. It's very easy for them to consume it because it's available in podcast format as opposed to live broadcast format.
Okay, so I want to sort of keep digging into this because, as you know, this is a personal finance show. My day job is that I'm an investment advisor, and I only get to speak to interesting people like you about once a week to do the Goldstein on Gelt show. But, if you're looking from an investment standpoint, there are these big media companies, and a lot of times the real estate that they own is their terrestrial radio. And again, based on what you're telling me, and also watching sometimes when I want to listen to the radio, I prefer to do it through a podcast, meaning I'll go to my iPad and look up the same radio station rather than turning on the radio. It almost seems to me as though we're talking in a few short years, these won't exist. On the one hand, because there's no revenue model for terrestrial radio. And on the other hand, it seems there's a lot of opportunities for continued growth in the podcast world. Is that true?
Yeah, podcasting is just going to continue growing. A lot of people are saying that podcasting is making a resurgence now. It really came out in the early 2000s, around 2004-ish, and it's been growing since then, but it faded from popularity. Now it's getting more popular as especially major comedians are turning to podcasting and finding huge success there. And major companies like ESPN has won podcast awards, and they're a television network, a traditional broadcast network, and they're involved in podcasting. So there's a lot of attention pointing back to this space now. and people are finding great success in it, whether they're just a small personal business or some large corporation like ESPN.
We are talking with award-winning podcaster Daniel J. Lewis, who not only has this fabulous podcast, but he also designs all sorts of neat things for websites. In fact, if you are a WordPress user, if you have a website like that, Daniel has told us that he is going to set up for us a possibility of downloading a special plugin that he has that adds scalable social media icons to your site to make it very easy for people to follow you. At the end of this interview, we'll have Daniel give us a discount code to learn to do that. Now, Daniel, you were talking about whether this podcasting is something for businesses. Are we just heading in the direction where we're going to see podcasts as just another form of infomercials?
I don't think so. Now, they certainly can be, and I've heard some podcasters that do that. But what attracts people to podcasting, as people who want to podcast, that is it's an opportunity for them to share their passions in a very passionate way, because I can express so much more passion to you through my voice than in writing. Some people just feel like they're not that great at writing, but they can talk. They can be personal in their communication with their words and their speech. And that's what attracts many people to podcasting, whether audio or video, is that they can share their passions. And even if just 20 or 30 people are listening, then that's 20 or 30 people coming back on a consistent basis, caring about what that person has to say. And for the perspective of business for this, you could turn podcasting into a business, or podcasting can be part of a business, because what you can do in podcasting is you are sharing your knowledge, sharing your expertise, and you're establishing yourself as a thought leader by doing so. Because you can write something down and people can see, yeah, you know what you're writing about, but you can heavily edit what you're writing to make sure it flows, make sure it's understandable, and all of that. But when you are speaking, you don't have as much flexibility to edit. So what you say needs to come across clearly. And if it does, then people will realize, wow, he's so good at this. He can speak about this. He can present this very clearly. And so when people want to hire or purchase something, you already have their trust, and you already have built a reputation of what you know that you're sharing. And imagine how much more you know that you haven't shared yet. And that's what people will want to tap into as potential customers.
I guess it's not just building a reputation, it's really earning the trust of these people, because if you do a crummy job, they're not going to want to come back to you.
Right. And that's where how well you communicate and how well you present the information is so much key to the information itself.
So let's focus on the fact that anyone can do this, really. In fact, you have a podcast that teaches people how to podcast, and pretty much anyone with a computer and even a cheap headset, let alone an expensive headset, can get himself on the air. But one of the benefits, I would say, of listening to terrestrial radio, or by the way, watching TV for that matter, or reading a book that's published by a major publishing company, is there's a certain screening process. You know that there are editors and producers, and there's a real professional team that makes sure that it's high quality. And frankly, I've watched and listened to a number of podcasts that I wouldn't call high quality. What's the method that we have to make sure that we're getting a whole universe of high quality media the same way we would expect it from our TV or radio?
This is where the numbers really don't lie. What things show up high in search results, or what things receive very high rankings, because iTunes, for example, is the most popular podcast directory. And when you search for a podcast, you can see that it has so many ratings and its reviews. It's a 1-star or a 5-star average rating, and you can read through the comments. So when you look at that, just take in the whole experience. Like, how is it designed? How well is their description? How nice is their title and descriptive? And then once you start playing, quite often you can be able to tell how good it is. But yeah, it's true that just anybody can start a podcast. But those people who do it well will naturally stand out from the rest, because they'll receive the accolades, they'll receive the awards, the attention from podcast directories, the high ratings and reviews. And it will be very easy that once you get in, that you'll start seeing the ones that keep popping up everywhere. Everybody's referring to this podcast. Everybody's saying that they're listening to this podcast. It's probably a really good podcast.
Mm-hmm. So on the other hand, then that was from the side of the consumer. But let's say you want to be the person who makes the podcast. You're up against all these greats like you. For example, you have an award-winning podcast, and if I wanted to start, how am I ever going to compete to get those stars because you've got the whole turf kind of covered?
Well, the most important thing, three things that you need to have in high quality. You need to have high quality content that people would actually want to share. You need to present that content in a high quality way, speaking clearly, making sure it's understandable, that people can follow and understand it. And then the third thing is high quality production quality. You want to make sure that your audio sounds great. If you're doing video, that your video looks great. Audio is a lot easier to do well. You can get a really inexpensive microphone out there. It's called the Audio-Technica ATR 2100 USB. It's a USB microphone that can plug directly into your computer. And in the United States, it's under $40, and it's still pretty inexpensive internationally. And you can start with just that microphone, and it's all about the technique. So much, once you purchase that inexpensive microphone that still sounds really good for its very low price, then it's about how well are you presenting your content? How good is your content?
Okay, so there's a lot of possibilities for people who want to get started. We are just about out of time. We have been talking with Daniel J. Lewis, an award-winning podcaster. He also teaches people how to podcast, and he's designed a really neat plugin for WordPress. If you have a website and you want to help people to follow you, it's a plugin that's that puts scalable social media icons on your site. Now, Daniel said that he would give us a discount code to get that at the website. So, Daniel, can you just tell us how to do that?
Yeah, it's at subscribeandfollow.com. And if you use the promo code GELT, G-E-L-T, then you'll be able to save $10 off of that plugin. And right now it's only available in English at subscribeandfollow.com. But if any of your listeners would like to help translate it, then I'd be very open to that.
All right, we'll get to be real international. All right, listen, we will put a link to that in the show notes, as well as a link to the microphone you suggested. Thanks very much for that good advice. And Daniel J. Lewis, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Doug.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt Show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt Show.